Hey guys, good morning from sunny Mazatleco. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're not, welcome back. I'm down in Central today because I want to tell you a story about a famous Mazatleco, and I'll almost guarantee you all know his name, but you don't know why, and you don't know why he's famous. So you'll have to stay tuned to find out. Here we go. Well, it's certainly a beautiful morning here in Mazatlan. It's just after 9 o'clock. It's probably around 27 degrees Celsius right now. No wind, no real humidity, but that's going to come later this afternoon. It always does. So I get out early to tell you this story. I thought I'd show you some of Central. The story starts 150 years ago, 1871. Two boys were born in Mexico, one in Guadalajara to the Gonzalez family, and the other, who's the subject of our story, I'm going to keep anonymous for right now because it's going to ruin the story if I tell you. But if you watch closely, you may be able to pick up on a clue as to what his name is. So these two boys that were born in the 1870s, one was Enrique Gonzalez Martinez, and he was born in Guadalajara, down in Jalisco State, just south of us here. And eventually he became the prefect for Mocorito, which is a pueblo mágico that's just north of Culiacan in the foothills of the Sierra Madres Mountains. So I come down here to show you that the Water's Edge Bistro and the big building that it's housed in used to be the home of the prefect of Mazatlan. Now, a prefect was a government representative of some fashion, something like our governors today, I think. But I thought it was interesting to show you that prefects ruled the roost back in the 1890s, 1900, when these two gentlemen I'm speaking of would have been reaching maturity. So the second boy, and the subject of our story, he was born, and I want to leave him anonymous because I don't want to ruin the story for you. He was born in Villa Union, which is a small village not far from Mazatlan, just south of Mazatlan on the way to Jalisco. And I don't think these two boys knew each other or their families knew each other. From the research I could do, I believe they met later in life as a result of their common interest. They were both very interested in reading, writing, studying, poetry, books of all sorts. And they grew up in sort of different worlds. Guadalajara, even in the 1890s, when these boys would have been around 20, would have been a big city. Whereas Villa Union is not a big city now. It's still a fairly small town. And the anonymous subject of our story, who grew up there, he grew up in a life with the campesinos, which would be the peasant farmers, hunting, fishing, hiking in the mountains, and he loved it. He never forgot it. And even as he became famous, I've read where it was said he always carried his love of the outdoors and his hometown on his lap. But as time went on, his friend, Enrique Gonzalez, the Gonzalez family decided to relocate to Culiacan, where Enrique's father was going to work at a school. And at that time, Enrique would have been around 19 years old, just coming into his own, and he moved with the family to Culiacan. And he began to work as a surgeon and a midwife. So you can tell, obviously, the man was a serious student. So when Dr. Gonzalez took his job, you can see he was a serious student. But he not only liked medicine, he was very interested in literature, poetry, books, and you got to think back to the 1870s. There certainly was no TV, no radio, not much in the way of entertainment, and books would have been the way to go. And that's what he shared in common with our anonymous friend. And the research I did, I can't find out if the families knew each other or not, but sometime early in life they met and became friends. And when Dr. Gonzalez was working in Culiacan, he must have been really good at his job, because within 2 years he was appointed prefect of Mocorito, which is one of the magical villages, the Pueblos Mágico in Mazatlan now. It's just 30 minutes north of Culiacan in the foothills of the Sierra Madres. It's a beautiful little town, and he worked there. Well, that enabled him to hire his friend, our mysterious second person. And they worked in Culiacan and wrote and contributed to periodicals, to magazines. They combined their efforts, and they had a magazine of their own, an arts magazine called Arte. They wrote for the Correo del Mundo, which was a national newspaper, and became very famous across Mexico. And Dr. Gonzalez tried to convince his friend that he was famous, but it turns out he never felt that he quite made the grade. In spite of all his celebrity, because he became known across Mexico for his writing, for his poetry, for his journalism. They said he was world-class humble all his life, and he always carried his love of Villa Union and the surrounding farms and mountains with him the rest of his days, and it showed in his writing. I've read some of what he's written, and even though it's been translated into English, they're beautiful words about how his heart burnt with the green of the mountains surrounding him, and how sunsets dyed in the crimson colors, and the loneliness. All kinds of really nice stuff about Villa Union. Some of what our mysterious author wrote, I've read in English, and even in English it's really fantastical. He writes about how satyrs chased nymphs and fawns through the forest, how trees were rimmed with gold, talked about the loneliness, the farming, the hunting, the sunsets. It's spectacular stuff, and if you had no TV and no radio, or you could read this or someone could read it to you, they were great stories, I'm sure. And it's sad, but only 17 of his published works survive to this day, from what I can understand from the 2 or 3 days of research I did to put this together. That's really a sin. He didn't get all the recognition he deserved. But I think it's cool that you know his name, but you may not know why. So our two gentlemen lived a good life in Mocorito, writing. Dr. Gonzalez published 3 books, one of which our mysterious man wrote the foreword for. It would have been interesting times. It was just prior to the Mexican Revolution. Mexico was still under a dictatorship at the turn of the 1900s, and I'm sure that they became known, they became famous nationwide and beyond. They were famous, or especially our mystery man was famous in intellectual circles in Spain, and it would have been interesting to see some of the letters they were writing to local people and people around Mexico. And those letters existed until the 1950s. Around 1955, up until then, there were several attempts to get them published. And all were in vain, all were unsuccessful. And it's really a shame, because our gentleman in question never really received the recognition he might have deserved. Sadly, all the works that were saved for years, like I say, until the 50s, they've all gone missing. No one knows where they are or if they still exist. Attempt after attempt to have them published just never happened. It's really sad. It would have been interesting to see what they had to say about the coming revolution. I'm sure there were turbulent times, much like times are today. And it's really a sin that they don't exist anymore. At the time these two gentlemen were becoming famous for their writing, their poetry, their books, there would have been a lot of gold mining going on in Mexico, especially in Rosario, which is just the other side of Villa Union, not very far from Mazatlan. And the gold that they mined was stored in ingots in secure storage in the Belmar Hotel. And this is the side entrance to the Belmar, and this is the gate where millions of dollars of gold would have been shipped out of here to Europe through Mazatlan's port. In fact, this street used to be called Calle del Oro, the Street of Gold. They've changed the name today, and now I'm going to tell you why you know our mysterious man. His name was the name of the street today, Sixto Osuna. Thanks for watching. If you like my content, please click like, share, and subscribe. Bye for now.